All right, well, we are at 4 minutes past the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started. There probably will be a few more people that jump on as we get underway here, but happy to have you all here today. I'm Carolyn Pemberton, Senior Program Manager with America Saves, and we're happy to have you all here today for what we are expecting to be a very engaging and productive conversation. And today we're really going to look at something a little bit newer from our angle, and that is this concept of financial confidence. And so hopefully you all had a chance to look at the questions that we have sent in advance to kind of get your thoughts rolling around this topic. And so as we prepare for our conversation today, again, we thank you all for being here. We know you're all very busy people, and we really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be with us. And it's not lost on us that you made time in your calendar for this conversation to be a part of. And we hope that as a community all focused on financial wellness in the workplace, that collectively we can make an impact. And so I'm here today, excuse me, and that I wanted to just remind everyone of the America Saves at Work program. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm totally off track. Anyway, the America Saves Work It program, which we talked about in June, has a mission and a vision that is aligned with what is going on in the workplace. And we today are going to take a little bit of a different angle, as I said, and talk about financial confidence. And so, we know that each of you bring a unique perspective to this topic of financial wellness and how we can make a difference or use the workplace to make a positive difference in the financial lives of Americans. So our intention is for all of us to walk away at the end with some new information to use in our combined efforts of helping Americans lead financially and fulfilling lives, financially healthy and fulfilling lives. And at the end today, we're really excited to share with you an announcement about the unique ways to collaborate through the America Saves at Work program. So we hope that you will be able to stay with us until the end when we're going to share these exciting details with you, and look forward to working together. So right now, I want to introduce my colleague, Amanda Woods, who is the Strategic Partnership Coordinator, America Saves, who's going to review some of the housekeeping details. Amanda?
Thanks, Carolyn. Hey, everybody. Happy to be here with you today. We're excited to have you all here for the America Saves Workplace Savings Roundtable. Before we get started, there are a couple of housekeeping tips that I'd like to share with you ahead of time so that we can have the most engaging and productive conversation. First, if you have the ability, I know that in this webinar format, you might not be able to turn on your camera, so we apologize for that. You can disregard the camera request. Speaker view versus gallery view. Again, I don't know if that's necessarily appropriate in this, but you have two options for how you can experience. At the top right, you can choose gallery view, which would allow you to see many participants at once with whoever is speaking highlighted. The other option, of course, is speaker view, which allows you to hone in on the speaker and see a few other participants as well. We're looking forward to the amazing contributions and insights that each of you will bring to this roundtable. And we ask that you utilize the raise hand function in Zoom when you'd like to speak or respond. This will allow us to create a space where everyone can share and discuss while avoiding the multiple participants speaking at one time. Our moderator, Carolyn, will guide this discussion throughout. And we'll have some team members present, like myself, who will focus on monitoring the chat and the raised hands to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to share who would like to. We want to encourage each of you to share and respond, even if it differs from other people's contributions. So there's room for everyone to contribute, and we all have value and insight and expertise, and we're excited for you each to bring it to this discussion.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. And I do just want to remind everyone that we are recording this session, so hopefully that's okay with you, but we'll share the link for the recording with you afterwards, and that way you can listen to anything again that you would like to listen to, and perhaps even share it with others in your organization. So as we get ready for the discussion, I want to set the stage for our exchange with some background information. And also Kia Young, the director of America Saves, will be joining us as well in just a minute. And so she'll be participating, sharing the America Saves perspective in each of our different questions. But just to remind you all, when we introduced the America Saves at Work program in June, the mission, as we described, is to elevate the importance and positive impact of workplace financial wellness benefits through research, collaboration, and creation of resources. And the vision for our program is for all employees to have easy access to financial information, tools, and resources through their workplace. So one element of the America Saves at Work program, is to really center the voice of the saver, and and that we do through all of this work that we will be sharing, and also through these events like this webinar that we're having today. So in our discussion today, we're taking a closer look at how emotions impact financial decisions and what is the role for employers in increasing the financial confidence of their people. We know, or that I should say at America Saves, we understand that money and finances can trigger a range of emotions. And throughout our adult lives, we can feel shame for making purchases that we really didn't need. We can be confident about the amount of money that we've saved for retirement, or regret for not saving for emergencies when we had to use credit to pay for an unexpected expense. Many people will describe themselves as good or bad in how they handle money. And either description is probably an oversimplification, ignoring the more complex factors associated with our money. We recognize that money tends to be a subject that isn't openly discussed, especially in the workplace. Coworkers, rarely share how much they spent on their new car or how much they've saved for retirement. And whereas we often share stories with others when we're dealing with difficult situations in an attempt to find support, money is more often regarded as something that you figure out for yourself. So we believe that by identifying and addressing our emotions, we are more capable of making the changes we need to make in order to improve financial wellness and build financial confidence. And now here are some statistics and research findings about the impact of emotions on financial decision making. A Bank of America study from 2021 found, or a survey I should say, found that 25% of employers felt a sense of responsibility for employee financial wellness, and 56% of those report feeling an extreme sense of responsibility. According to a 2021 report by Sherm and Morgan Stanley, 61% of working Americans rate their financial well-being as excellent or good. Only 17% rate their financial well-being as excellent. So while a majority of workers have a positive self-rating, the wide gap between good and excellent shows that the majority of workers can still benefit from programs that address financial well-being. And in a study from Capital One, participants who created a savings goal in association with a positive emotional experience increased their savings by 67%. And that's compared to a group that just received financial education, which increased savings by 22%. And then an experiment from 2009 found that people with high levels of hope and hopefulness not only had better retirement savings habits, but that when their hope and hopefulness was threatened, those individuals responded by increasing their retirement savings. And then finally, an analysis of users of the banking app Jupiter had several interesting findings. This showed that a direct and immediate emotional payoff for savings boosts future savings behavior. And this boost in turn helped promote a habit of saving. And those with a habit were more likely to increase their savings when prompted. Increasing the size of monetary rewards offered little benefit in increasing savings behavior as compared to emotional rewards and an established habit. So it seems that boosting positive emotion and building a habit of savings are quite effective. We also know that many working adults have not had formal education for managing their personal finances and instead have learned from observing others or reading information online. And so we feel like this has created an opportunity for employers to serve as more of a resource, for financial information and assistance for their people. So today, just like we did in June, we want to have a robust exchange of ideas, opinions, and experiences about the role that employers can play in instilling more financial confidence in their people. And it certainly is okay to express differing opinions. That's what we're here for. So let's talk about the emotions and confidence and how they're intertwined with the way that people make decisions about their money and finances. And let's explore what the opportunities are for employers to be involved in supporting their people. And throughout this discussion, we also, want to be able to explore how we can work together to combine research, knowledge, and practical applications to guide employers in their decisions about what it looks like for them to be an active participant in their employees' savings journey. So now let's dive into the questions. So the first question is exactly what is financial confidence? And so confidence generally is defined as having that feeling that you can believe or trust in someone or something. So what does financial confidence look like? We've seen public opinion surveys where people talk about or they rate their confidence in being able to live comfortably in retirement or handle unexpected expenses. Sometimes it may seem like this confidence is overstated when you look at the data around how much people have actually saved. So are they overconfident? And I think Kia, is she on with us now?
I am, Carolyn. Thanks so much.
Terrific. Well, do you want to share the America Saves perspective here?
Of course. First want to say sorry for not being on to welcome everyone that's here. I'm in a different time zone. I had a family emergency and needed to go to Tennessee. And I think that my computer and phone couldn't keep up with me being in a different time zone. So I was kind of like thinking that we still had almost an hour. And then when I tried to log in, it wouldn't let me. And we all know the tech things that are happening. So I'm excited to be here. I'll be a little late and excited to welcome you and be a part of this conversation today. My role is actually to be here as a participant as well. And so thanks to Carolyn and Amanda for getting us started. Now to what is financial confidence. I'm really excited to talk about this because America Saves has really kind of honed in on this idea of financial confidence and defining what that is because it is so important to our savers right now. At America Saves, we are defining and see financial confidence as this kind of intersection. It's an intersection of financial education, of taking these small, positive, and easy to implement actions that increase a person's financial belief system. But building financial confidence goes beyond just tying financial success to how much is in your bank account, because we're not all there yet, especially our savers that earn a low to moderate income. They're not at a place where they feel like, oh, I'm financially successful, right? But what does that mean for them in the meantime where they're working toward that financial success? So financial confidence to us is empowering our savers to take necessary actions toward their financial stability, no matter their current status. That empowerment comes from having a trusted community of support like America Saves and Military Saves, knowing what local and community resources are available to them, and then taking advantage, feeling confident enough to take advantage of those opportunities in an effort toward financial stability. So not feeling shame or guilt about where they are currently, knowing those resources, and then saying, okay, I'm not where I am or where I want to be right now, but in the meantime, these things are available to help me get there. So at America Saves and Military Saves, we always say that an informed saver is an empowered saver, and an empowered saver can make the best financial decisions for them and their families based on their own unique financial situation. And that's because they have a clear view of their finances. They also know their financial goals and where those areas of opportunities lie in their savings journey or financial journey. So an example of what financial confidence looks like for us at America Saves is we'll use our podcast as an example. So we launched a new podcast, Think Like a Saver, back in July to a lot of fanfare. Savers love it, but specifically they love a segment of our podcast called Save or Skip. And each episode of our podcast, we have our season 1 is out. We have 10 episodes. And each episode, it includes a scenario where Amanda and I, who are the co-hosts, discuss an opportunity to either spend money or to skip whatever that opportunity is and save the money. And the point of that segment is to encourage this idea that each person can make the decision to save or skip based on their own unique situation. And so in some episodes, I'm posing a scenario to Amanda, and others, she's posing it to me. And we're really considering our own personal situation to determine if we should save or skip. So there is no, oh, you should do things this way. We're really talking about each of our lived experiences and encouraging our savers to be able to be empowered enough and have enough understanding of their own financial goals where they can do that exact same thing and make the decision to save or skip, and to be confident that they are making the decision for themselves. So financial confidence is something that is definitely coming from the inside. It's something you have to work toward. And that is America Saves. That's kind of what lane we're playing in right now, is helping people achieve that idea of being financially confident.
That's great. All right, so let's open it up. Other thoughts, comments, reactions to what is financial confidence? Matt, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Yeah, just want to say thanks for including all this group of thinkers and folks that are really, committed to this. One question that I had was, how do you all think about the balance between the subjective and objective factors that can impact confidence? So for example, we've often seen in our research that people tend to overinflate their sense of confidence when the objective reality is not there. So how do y'all think about balancing those two potentially competing factors?
That's a great question, Matt, and something that we're pretty cognizant of. We've heard this idea that people can become overly confident. And I really think for where we are, and I can only speak for America Saves, where our savers are, they're not really at the point where they can feel overly confident because they're still working on kind of those stepping stones, those building blocks to financial success. So we're still really early in the process of working with our savers. We're learning, what those areas of opportunities are. And so the overconfidence really hasn't come into play for us just yet. So we haven't had to deal with that. But as we continue to create programming, we're very cognizant of this idea that it definitely can become an overconfidence. And the other thing that we talk about often is that you're going to make mistakes, right? We're all learning. A ton of us have never had formal financial education opportunities. So we never miss an opportunity to tell people they're going to make a mistake, to be prepared for that mistake to come, and then the different ways that they can go about kind of rebounding from those things. So we talk a lot about emotions and releasing yourself from guilt or shame from making those mistakes, and kind of get them in the mindset that it's probably going to happen, and in a way trying to temper the idea that they become overly confident as they're, gaining and hitting some new and fun milestones for themselves as they're building their savings habit. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Let's see. So I think we see here, Sharvi, do you have something that you want to contribute?
Yeah, very quickly, I think what you all spoke about confidence really resonated. I think in our work, we've been talking a lot about agency and the importance of agency in all communication, all messaging that we sort of put together and develop, that the consumer really needs to feel like they are in a position where they are making choices and they are making decisions. So the more we can do that has been really important. And I think one example of that from like a product, less so messaging, or maybe both point of view is there's a lot of value in automation. Like we talk a lot about split deposit. I know America Saves does a lot about that, and like we love it. At the same time, like I think automation with control, we are seeing increasingly is really helpful in terms of messaging. So reminding people that they can pause it when they want, reminding them that they can come back and change their settings when they want is something we are trying to build in increasingly in a lot of our work.
Terrific. Thank you, Sharvi. Anyone else like to contribute? So I'll go back a little bit to what Matt said in the beginning, about this idea of people, being overly confident. I think one of the issues that we're trying to address as well is giving people the information and the resources so that their confidence can be aligned appropriately with where they are and also where they want to get to. So even if you may not be in a great place right now, or you might think, okay, I don't have $500 or $1,000 in my emergency savings account, I am saving automatically in every paycheck. So they can be confident that they're going to get there, even if they aren't there yet, which is, what Kia was talking about. But I think so it's giving them that information that can help them decide the strategies that they need to take in order to be realistic about their confidence. Laura.
Yeah, hi everyone. I was just thinking about something related to what Sharvi had mentioned about employees feeling in control, but also of their financial decisions, but also having options. So thinking about employers' roles in all of this, especially when it comes to the financial wellness benefits offered, 401k is only accessible to some employees, and providing options where employees have access to financial wellness benefits that meet them where they are and relate to their financial position from our standpoint is really important.
Terrific. Thanks for that contribution, Laura. Anyone else? Alicia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me in this interesting roundtable. I just want to add to what Matt said, that it is important, of course, to do not focus only on overconfidence, but also adding something about underconfidence. In fact, for example, for women, what is the result of our research at GFLEC is that female, for example, are more likely to answer do not know. So they show that they are less knowledgeable than men, but 1/3 of this gap in knowledge is due to financial confidence, lack of financial confidence. In fact, when you remove the do not know option, they are more likely to answer the correct answers. So it's something that is important to take into account, because lack of financial confidence prevents you to put in practice what you know. So you are not able to develop your financial capabilities. Maybe it's not only lack of knowledge, but also a part of this gap is based on financial confidence. So I just want to contribute to the discussion, looking at the importance of being financial confident. Of course, not too much compared to your real knowledge, or otherwise we are in the case of financial overconfidence, but it's essential also to put in practice what you know. Thank you.
Terrific. Well, thank you for contributing that comment. Anyone else before we move on to the next question? Okay. So next we want to talk about how can employers help increase the financial confidence among their employees. Is this done, either with programming, benefits, resources, or some combination of the three? As we defined earlier, one element of financial confidence is knowing what resources are available to you as you take action regarding your finances. So having information about resources that you can access locally in your community, online, or from companies that you already do business with. And we've shared previously that in our work with employers and employees, it's shown that employees absolutely do trust and rely on their employers to provide reputable and reliable resources, particularly as it relates to finances. So can employers take this trust and use it to help build the financial confidence in their people? And if so, how specifically can they do that? Kia, do you want to share some of what we do at America Saves?
Yeah. So we are definitely positioned as a resource for employers, and we have a lot of ways that we can directly support employers to join us on this quest for financial confidence for their employees. One example of this is our annual campaigns, America Saves Week and Military Saves Week, which are designed to encourage individuals to take action toward their financial goals and revisit their savings journey and savings habits. Employers can participate in the week both externally, which we get a lot, but even more so internally, which we don't see as often with employers deciding, okay, we're going to participate in either America Saves Week and Military Saves Week, but we're going to make sure that we also include our staff and employees in that messaging for the week. So keeping it in, having this internal kind of messaging for their staff as well. So employers can participate again in the week internally or externally. And then when you sign up to participate for those campaigns, you get access to our digital toolkit, which is full of blog articles, social media posts, newsletter copy, graphics, just anything that you can think of, all designed to help employers talk to their people about saving and finance. And so this year's theme for America Saves Week and Military Saves Week is a financially confident you. We actually open America Saves Week next week for signups, and Military Saves Week will be open in November. And in addition to those campaigns, we also have our Split to Save program, which we've talked about quite a bit, which is that tool for employers to use that promotes the use of splitting your direct deposit to save automatically. But I think it's really important to not just have these conversations during those big campaigns, right? Like I mentioned, America Saves Week and Military Saves Week. So throughout the year, we also offer resource packets. So usually at least quarterly, we have a resource packet that is focused on one central theme or idea. It's like a mini toolkit. It's much smaller than our America Saves Week and Military Saves Week toolkits. And again, focused on one specific topic to help you have more conversations about savings and money and financial habits with your employees throughout the entire year.
Okay, thanks, Kia, for helping to set the stage. So who would like to jump in first with ways that employers can help increase the financial confidence among their people? Jerry?
Hey, good afternoon. Glad to be here with you all today. Jerry Quinn with the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association. I bring a perspective from the military and veteran audience. I've been providing financial education for the military and veterans for over 10 years now through a number of financial entities that I've worked for. Today, it's the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association, also known as AFMA. Nice to be here. Thanks a lot. You know, when I was a young man, today I'm a reservist in the military. I spent many years on active duty, but when I was a young man in my first civilian role, I still remember to this day the impact that our 401k provider had on me when the president of our bank, which this apparently was a regular theme, every year would have the 401k provider come to the bank. We'd keep the bank closed for an extra hour in the morning, and all employees would get a briefing about the 401k benefits, about, you know, some of the asset allocations, some mild education around, you know, saving for, you know, the many things that we save for, but primarily retirement and so on. That has had such an impact on me. I've carried that forward to every organization I've worked with to make sure that we do that in our civilian organizations. So in civilian organizations, you know, that is one of the key places where I really insist on our human resources team to really promote that. You know, 401k can kind of be a set it up and kind of forget it kind of thing. You do your annual audits, everything's good. Whoever enrolls is great. But and we've seen it happen. I've seen it and this is in financial services. All of the people that I've worked with in my civilian career has been in financial services. And we actually see an uptick in savings and in participation rates when we make it required training that every employee learns about, you know, the benefits of the 401k. And so just some very good outcomes from that piece that I think are one of the ways that employers can really increase financial confidence. Now, not every employer provides a 401k or other retirement plan, but I think there are similar activities that any employer can provide their employees. I have a long-standing belief that if I'm not healthy, mentally healthy, physically healthy, financially healthy, I cannot be effective for my employer, for my family, for my community. And so by finding ways to deliver that kind of material to my constituents, the people that I want to be able to perform, whether it's a team member on my team, whether it's my family member, whether it's, you know, I want my community association to work better, I need to provide them resources that will help make them more fit in whatever dimension we're talking about. Financial is what we're talking about here. And so delivering these various resources of financial education, quality financial education, you have to have the type of material that people are going to be drawn to. We can't rest on our laurels that, you know, we've done good enough, but instead, is there a new way that we can present it? Is there another way that that we can get the message to the people that we really want to see succeed? And certainly the team members on the team that I work with, I want to see each and every one of them succeed. So some of that is just bringing creative, relevant financial education to them at various points in time. If I could take just a few more seconds to answer the question about military and veterans, I would like to say that, and I don't know how many other military representatives we have on the phone. So there is an Army regulation. Actually, there is a US code that defines financial education when it must be provided to military members. And as a current active reservist and a serving military member for 34 years, I have not seen the military effectively meet the requirements of Title 10, the US code that defines when financial education will be provided and the kind of materials that will be covered. I think one of the things that we need to do, one of the things that I hope to be able to do long-term is to have the public-private partnership, organizations like America Saves and Military Saves, begin to have an impact, well, continue to have an impact, even a greater impact on the way this financial education gets delivered to our military members and veterans. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I see a lot of, I won't say negative outcomes, I will just say less than what you would expect from mid-grade and senior level personnel inside this industry without the financial capability probably to have what we were trying to define as the confidence in the early question. Thanks for giving me a few minutes to share. I know that was a mouthful, but I'll be quiet and let the rest of the folks weigh in. Thanks.
If it's okay, Carolyn, I just wanted to respond to that really quickly. With Jerry, I believe that I saw that you'll be attending, or someone from AFA will be attending the summit on November 1st. Andy Cohen is actually going to be there. I've had a conversation with him just yesterday. So he has given a really nice ear about that. So I think that might be a perfect opportunity to talk more about that. I've personally been talking to him about, how to intersect that public and private sector to meet the goals that they have at the DoD as well. So you're not alone in that, wanting to see that happen.
That's excellent.
Well,
we're going to team up on him. Now we need to make our ambush plan. That's the next step. Excellent. Thank you.
I suspect there are several organizations on this call who have products or services, Jerry, that could be used with the military audience as well. So hopefully some of that collaboration can develop within this group. So I see, Alicia, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate also the comments from Gary. And what I want to add to this question is that to really help employees, employers should be not only provide financial education, that is of course something that we promote at GFLEC, but also to give them some incentive to follow. And this is important in order to make the effort, the joint effort with the provider of financial resources and also the employers who are able to offer this kind of benefit to their employees, also to save cost in their interest. Because our research shows that people with the lack of financial knowledge and spend a lot of hours, many hours, thinking about the financial issues on the workplace. So this is a cost for the employers. And if the employers want to contribute to increase their level of financial confidence, of course, they should offer targeted financial education, but also give some incentives in order to have the opportunity to maximize their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. I appreciate that. And I think that's absolutely, rewarding or offering incentives definitely is important. Anyone else have comments to share on what employers can do, what you've seen, what you're trying to work with employers on? Okay. Oh, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I think a couple things, just appreciate the conversation and the dialogue here, but we have seen that the most successful programs originate from a deep understanding of what people need. And I think at times there's an impulse for a lot of employers to just start throwing the next cool innovation at their workforce, and then they complain about how no one uses it. And the first question I always ask our employer partners when they say, geez, I have low engagement with the program, is how many people needed that program? And so I think as you're thinking about building financial confidence, whatever solutions you have to be responsive to the needs of the workforce. And that usually results in thinking about a multitude of solutions and being strategic about when and how you deploy them. Because as I think the conversation started, is the needs of individuals are going to be varied. Now, there are large buckets, retirement plans, access to affordable healthcare, wages that allow them to get through in their daily lives. But at the margins of other things, you'll often see programs that are completely ineffective because they are not tailored or designed to meet the needs that are expressed by the workforce. So I would just say that while the impulse to deploy solutions is awesome, we have that same impulse, doing so in the absence of a deep understanding of what folks need and a really product agnostic assessment framework, and helping HR, frankly, build some of the data competencies they need to analyze what data they do have to be more data forward and data centric in their deployments. can result in a lot of wasted dollars from the employees, as well as wasted contributions, as a way to diminish confidence. Because if you're putting solutions in front of workers that they don't need, that trust that you build in the workplace can very quickly be eroded. So I would just add that perspective and context from our experience.
That's terrific. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Sharvi, I believe you had your hand raised.
Yeah, huge plus one. I think that's exactly what I was going to talk about as well. I think like it's really important to talk to users. And I think like to that point that Matt just made about like data, I think another thing we're increasingly talking to employers about, sometimes successfully, sometimes work in progress, is getting that data disaggregated by different levels. So like talking to employees across different income levels, talking to different like men and women, talking to people from different races, different ethnicities, because like what people need would vary by a lot of these parameters, and data sort of research continues to show that a lot of times employees believe that benefits at the workplace are designed for the higher income employees and they're not designed for them. So I think like trying to understand where that gap is coming from, the starting point would be starting to look at that data by gender, by race, which is really important.
Terrific. Thanks for that. Cindy, you had your hand raised. Cindy Wood.
Hey, Carolyn. Thanks for having us today. So Cindy Wood, I am from the Kroger company, and I wanted to just share a little bit about some of the work that my team and I have been doing actually over probably the past like couple of months. And we are starting to offer financial coaching to our hourly population through ASAW, and it's a new benefit. Like it's something that's never been done before, so a little nervous because just like we just talked about, like the participation and stuff like that, like what is it going to look like in a year? But one of the things that we're doing is we're spending a ton of time out in the field. I was actually out in Arizona last week having some focus groups with different populations to try and understand what those associates are looking for. And, you know, we ask them questions about like, when you say money, like, what do you think of? And some of the conversations have been hard, right? And some of the stuff has been hard to hear coming from our associates, but it's also been eye-opening to know that, you know, we have some associates that are literally living paycheck to paycheck or barely living paycheck to paycheck. But then, you know, we have other associates that are really trying to do the right thing. And how do we meet each one of those where they are to help them move forward and be successful and to become more confident in what they're doing? And so I'm hoping that our partnership with ASAW and putting a live person on the other end of the phone to that hourly population for very basic stuff, not, you know, how do I do estate planning, but how do I get out of debt? How do I not live paycheck to paycheck? I'm hoping that the partnership over the next year or two, because I think we all, like, I'm confident knowing that what this benefit looks like today is we're doing a soft launch, and what it may look like in a year from now might need to tweak and ebb and flow to meet the associates where they're at. So, you know, sometimes I think you have to kind of take that leap and jump out and try something new versus just going with like what is status quo and what everybody else is doing.
Thank you, Cindy, for sharing the employer perspective. We appreciate that. And I think you raise a really valid point there. And I think we talked about this in June, that it does take time to see results from some of these programs. And, you know, expecting to see a massive change in 30 days is probably not realistic. And that, you know, you're acknowledging that it may take 12 to 24 months and that tweaks may be needed along the way, I think is a very healthy perspective. So we'll be eager to hear what you learn and what you see. Sid, do you want to share something?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Sid Pila from Sunny Day Fund. We do workplace emergency savings as well. I wanted to echo the points that have been made already. I think specifically with regards to what Matt and Charvi are saying, I wanted to add a bit of different color to this data collection aspect. What we have found is there's a significant dissonance between leadership and its frontline workforce in terms of things as simple as earnings and disposable income. For example, there was one CEO that we were talking with who honestly believed that the disposable income of an individual was far greater than it actually was, by an order of 50 basis points, by 50%. And I think that when we are thinking about our work here, I would ideally like to not limit it to just improving the financial health of individuals, which is, of course, a worthy cause in itself, but also creating a broader system where we're providing that feedback loop, as Cindy was just mentioning in Kroger, back to leadership, back to folks that are making decisions about pay and other benefits as well, in such a way that at the end of the day, the appropriate resources and the appropriate incentives are also delivered. So I just want to share that anecdote.
That's terrific. Thanks, Sid, for sharing that. Really appreciate that perspective.
Hey,
Anyone
Carolyn,
else before we move on to our next question?
I'd like to elaborate around the last speaker's comment. And I mean, you've linked, and I'm sorry, sir, I didn't get your name and I've not met you, so apologize. But I heard you talk about the CEO and or senior leadership, and truly understanding, how pay impacts that financial confidence. And clearly it does. I mean, it's the starting point. You have to be earning a paycheck in order to have any, even before you can even talk about finances, right? And so I'd like to see if you had maybe another sentence or two on what you believe the employer's viewpoint should be. I think that I have a pretty good compensation plan here at our place. We're very competitive in the market. We do salary surveys. We try to, meet people where they are. We match 401k. We do a number of things, but they're probably pretty standard in the industry. And I'm just wondering if there's more that I should be thinking of. And if you had a sentence or two that you could contribute, I'd love to take some thoughts away.
Sure, Jerry. Happy to come back on if that's okay, Carolyn. All right, Kia, thank you.
Absolutely.
So just two things. I think one thing that you said there at the end, Jerry, is often one of the reasons that we have not seen, in my opinion, true progress in the realm of financial health, which is we're sticking with industry standards. And I don't think that's anyone's individual blame. I specifically just think that, it is the nature of the market to reflect what our competitors or our local geographic markets are doing in terms of employment. And I think that if we go back to things that Matt and Charvi are saying about, okay, we know, and what Carolyn was talking about with financial confidence as well, we know what the different elements are that create financial health, financial well-being, financial confidence, whatever we want to think about it as. And a critical portion of that, of course, includes savings and debt coaching, financial coaching, all of these different pieces. But if we're only sticking with the existing market tools, we lose the ability to see from the employees for whom we're designing these solutions, for whom we're making these decisions. We miss out on being able to provide those solutions. So I think that that's a part of what I'm trying to elevate. That I think that basically give the people what they want.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Sid. And then Matt, I see you have your hand up again.
I can't let Sid be the only person out there on that plank by himself. So I wanted to also add just another comment, because I think Sid was sort of building on some of my statements for Jerry. But I'm a former HR executive. I was the head of HR for one of the largest health systems, and I always relied on those market surveys. And it took me a while to realize what those particularly compensation surveys were, which is representations of what's the range of pay needed to get talent in the door, not how far that pay gets that talent, or how far that pay advances my goal as an HR or business leader to improve the lives of my people. And so I certainly think market surveys are a relevant data point. If that's the only data point that employers are collecting, they tend to obfuscate the real needs of their workforce and the challenges they may be facing. And I think it's most relevant, particularly for lower wage workers and frontline workers. So I would just encourage, and I do encourage with the employer groups we work with, to think about additional data points to evaluate the efficacy of some of your plans. So looking at living wage calculators, understanding geographic distribution, disaggregating data. That sounds like a lot more work. And so I understand the challenges that employers face. But I think building that muscle and gaining access to those things can be a real bulwark in helping you understand things like, why am I seeing leakage in my 401k plan? Why am I seeing people, even if I have an opt-out versus opt-in default, why are they opting out? You're never, as an employer, going to have the whole total view because people's financial lives don't just exist in the workplace. They exist in many other venues. But I think getting creative and agile in how you think about evaluating your programs and not base it solely just on markets, although markets are important, they are often skewed towards a particular set of insight and maybe not the insight that employers are striving for.
That's great. Thanks, Matt. And I would just add, financial lives and financial conditions and situations change and can change on a dime. And we saw that with the pandemic. And so being able to address those changes as they arise is also necessary. One minute and, a group of employees may be completely, financially, they may feel confident and sound and in a great place. And the next week that could all change for them due to some circumstance, either within or outside of their control. And so I think that's something else we have to keep in mind. That's not a static condition. Okay, let's move on to our next question. And that we've actually kind of been talking about, this is a little bit, I misread the question, so excuse me. But anyway, we want to talk next about what strategies can help employees focus on their future financial well-being. So we know, that savings is putting money aside for some specific purpose in the future. And that means delaying gratification in, the future could be next week, next month, next year, or, more than 5 years away. But whatever the time frame, it's not intended to be used today. And in our age of instant gratification, it can be difficult, to counter this desire. So how do we show employees that saving and doing things today for tomorrow is a positive step in the right direction to meeting their savings goals? And, particularly when that goal is far off in the future, like retirement, it can be really easy to say, oh, I'll start saving when I make more money, or when I paid off my student loan, or other scenarios. So what are the strategies that we can use to help address this human reaction of delaying, an action that we know intrinsically is in our benefit? And Kia, do you want to share the America Saves perspective?
Sure. So one of the things that we tend to do is this idea of keeping their goals front and center for them. And that's why there has to be a commitment to an ongoing conversation, right? So I was talking earlier about, people or employers, we have participating organizations who participate in America Saves Week. And that's kind of like their way of introducing financial well-being to their staff and employees. But it has to be this ongoing conversation. And so we've set up our program in a way that it is this ongoing conversation, that it's not just something that's talked about once per year, but that it's kind of celebrated and kept front and center all year long. So obviously you can do that by yourself as an employer, but you can also do this in tandem with a partner like America Saves or Military Saves. I had mentioned that our program is set up in a certain way to keep this ongoing conversation happening. So to give you some insight into how that happens is America Saves and Military Saves has an interactive tool. We have several entry points into the program, but one that's really familiar with a lot of our partners is our pledge. And so the pledge is this interactive tool that walks individuals through choosing a savings goal, making a plan to achieve that goal, right? It's all digital. It's all very private. No actual data is collected as far as like their bank accounts or anything like that. So America Saves and Military Saves, after an individual has taken the pledge, becomes what we like to call their accountability partner or their savings accountability partner by sending them ongoing communications and support of whatever that savings goal is that they chose when they took that pledge. And that ongoing communications comes via email, it comes via text message. If they opt in, they get nudges to remind them to save, remind them what their savings goals are, in addition to resources to helping them achieve that goal. And then we also invite them to several interactive and engaging events and content throughout the year. So that approach of like partnering with someone who can help that conversation continue to go, or organization to help that ongoing conversation continue, takes the on us as you as employers kind of off you, and encourages them to, once you encourage them to take the pledge, once they do it, you can be sure that your employees are having that ongoing conversation without so much of the work of that ongoing conversation to be on you. It allows them to continue to build their financial well-being and their financial confidence. But again, that's not the only way. So we are also able to create customized programming for your employees. Earlier this year, we did that with Even and with Walmart, where we developed.
I texted her too.
I'm sorry, we're hearing some feedback. If everyone will make sure that you're on mute. Okay, great. So earlier this year, America Saves created and developed a workshop specifically for Even, which is a financial tech early wage access platform, and Walmart employees, where we hosted this workshop just for their employees and walked them through creating a spending and savings plan in real time. And we had over 3,500 individuals sign up for this. And that's the kind of collaboration that we love to see from employers, that is a very customized strategy to ensure that their employees have time, are getting that financial education that we talked about, that focuses on their financial well-being.
Great, thanks, Kia. Who has comments that they'd like to share about how we can help employees focus on their past, present, and future financial well-being?
Hi, can I jump?
Yep, go ahead, Sharvi. Yep.
Thank you. I think that data, as suggested also from other participants, should always lead the conversation and make the point for employees to increase awareness about their responsibilities about their financial well-being. In fact, maybe we can use projection about the data that we are aware of, for example, the longevity risks. If you know that you have more time, your life is, you have more years to live, hopefully you would like to maintain the same expectations, the same lifestyle, you have to save more for a lot of reasons. And then talking about data and play also with their emotions, playing the sense that you want to keep the same financial well-being that we are aiming to reach in the present, also for the future. You think about your goals, for example, also your family goals. If you have children, if you want to leave something for charity, you have to plan ahead. So starting from the data and projection data for the future, you may increase their awareness, and in this way you can nudge them to thinking about the future. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Sharvi?
Yeah, I think three things that sort of come to mind as I think about this. One is incentives, and I think this touches on gratification a little bit, or that question, but we recently wrapped up some research with ASAW, which is an industry body for record keepers, and we found that incentives of any kind are valued by employees. And why that's really powerful is because a lot of times it feels like you want to give an incentive for account opening, and that doesn't feel great enough because you don't know if it's going to lead to sustained behavior. But we saw really high levels of interest among employees for both those early stage incentives as well as more longer term incentives. So up for the next 6 months, you continue to sort of display a behavior, and then you get that same monetary amount, and there's interest there as well. So I think there's a lot of flexibility for employers to think about doing incentives in a way that makes sense for their workforce and for their budget and the goals that they are trying to achieve. Commonwealth has done a lot of work around price-linked savings as an incentive, which I think really touches on that gratification point. Depending on how the price-linked savings incentive is structured, there's a way to sort of make savings seem a little less. Savings is always difficult. It's not going to be less difficult, but it just makes it a little bit more engaging and a little bit more interesting. And you have the opportunity to have some level of instant wins associated with savings, which I think we've seen in our work has led to high engagement. And I think related to incentives, I think what we also found in our research with ASAW was it's not only helpful and powerful from gratification and from like making savables achievable point of view, but I wonder if it's related to confidence in some ways or confidence in the employer, but what we heard from employees was that it sort of shows that the employer is actually invested in the program and is invested in the workforce and in the solution. So I think incentives is one way I'd say employers can sort of think about this. The second one was on communications, which I know we started to talk about. Alicia was talking about it a little bit right now. Again, in the most recent research that we did, we found that a multi-channel communication strategy is very effective. So oftentimes what happens is we do an email campaign, which is great, which is fantastic, but does it reach all of the workforce, right? Like with one employer we were working with, we would never have known if we wouldn't have asked and if they hadn't done the research with their workforce, but they didn't even have emails for 75% of their employees. So there's no way an email campaign was going to work. And in their case, then figuring out what is the way they communicate with employees and can we develop materials that sort of suit that model. So again, our research sort of highlights from a broad base of employees what are the preferred modes of communication, but really understanding what works for your employee base is going to be very, very important. And then in terms of the content of communication, we spoke about this early on as well, but we found in our work that positive framing, positive reinforcement, tying to people's aspirations, tying to values has been really, really effective when it comes to the type of messaging that is likely to resonate.
Thank you, Sharvi. That's all very insightful. Your comment about understanding how best to communicate with employees is one of the core elements of our work with employers with Split to Save. We always tell them you have to know how you reach your employees most effectively. Just like you said, if you don't have emails, then an email campaign is not going to work. So what are the ways that employers communicate with their employees and are able to reach their people? So I think that's very wise. Anyone else have any other comments here before we move on?
May I jump in here, Carolyn?
Absolutely, Sid. I was hoping you would.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate Charlie bringing up incentives, and I wanted to just point out something that we've learned about how incentives play a role in thinking about both the past, present, and future. With something like a 401k match, there's certainly a big incentive to save for the far future. And we all know how important it is to have liquid savings at the same time. So what we have found, similar to Charvi's work with price-linked savings and in general with some kind of match savings, is for the present, if you would like for the amount of money to be increased there, that's another place where an economic incentive of some kind, it doesn't need to be a tremendous amount, can be valuable. Same thing with the past, sitting down with a financial coach and assessing people's prior spend and leveraging ways to reward that with some form of an economic incentive, I think that could be really tremendous.
Great, thank you, Sid. Okay, let's move on. So our next question is, how are emotional and mental health and financial habits related? So today, particularly after all of the social, emotional, and financial upheaval from the pandemic, I think we as a society are very aware of how our mental and emotional health impacts all aspects of our lives, including finances. So what are we seeing with how people feel mentally and emotionally and how they manage their finances? There's no question that when we are feeling emotionally or mentally vulnerable, that decision-making may be fraught with regret or fear, or we may simply choose not to make a decision. So how are these all related? And Kia, what have we seen at America Saves?
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. So I believe that it was Sharvie who had mentioned the positive reinforcement, the talking about their values within communications. And that's kind of a core value at America Saves, is that we have a no shaming approach to all of our marketing and communications into finances as a whole. And so we do a lot to underscore that, so that our savers know that this is a safe space for them, and not just having, it's not enough to just be positive. But one thing that's really important to us is for them to feel seen. So as we are creating our communications, we really break that down to who are our different listeners and what can we say to them so that they know that we're talking directly to them, whether it be breaking our savers down into certain types of categories and letting them self-identify into the conversation, or something more grandiose than that. But some of the messages that we focus on, especially right now with inflation and rising costs, a few that I'll talk about. One is avoiding comparisons. So it can be really difficult to not make assumptions about people's finances, or to, like, I believe that it was Sid earlier saying, to make certain assumptions, especially if you're in a leadership position, to think that just because you see a certain thing, or just because you know what a person's salary is, that you know their financial situation. And, being able to avoid making comparisons or assumptions about a person's lifestyle is really important. I'm an old millennial, and I saw a TikTok recently. Yes, I do watch TikTok quite often. And on that TikTok, it was a video, and this person was saying her friends see her lifestyle and think that she's rich and making a lot of money. And then at the end, she goes, "That is not the case. That is not true. I'm just irresponsible." And it was funny at the time, but in a lot of cases, it's actually true. Another example of that, we had a podcast episode, and Amanda, who's here with us today, was explaining that she was at one point in quite a bit of debt. And she had a lot of shame about that, and her friends were inviting her to different places, and she was continually having to turn those invites down. And she finally confided in a friend that the reason why she had turned down all those invitations is because she was in debt. And when she finally said it out loud, her friend was very relieved and shared with her that she was in that same situation. So it's really important, one, to avoid those assumptions and comparisons, but also as we're creating messaging for our employees, for our communities, the people that we serve, to make sure that they know that we see them and that we're not making certain assumptions about their income, and that we know, that everyone's situation is different. Another kind of thing that we do is making sure that we're changing the story. So really talking about mindset. but not in a toxic positivity way, but giving some examples and ideas of how to switch your thinking and to be cognizant of the messages that you're giving yourself. So instead of like telling yourself you'll never have enough money in savings, telling yourself I may not be where I want to be, but I have the tools and I'm in a space where eventually I will be in that space. Okay. And then being mindful and intentional is another place that we focus on our messaging, intentionally tracking what we're spending, what we're saving, and more importantly, how it makes you feel. So as we're doing our spending and savings workshops, for example, there's a part where we're assessing their financial landscape. So they're looking at what income they have, they're looking at their own debts, they're looking at how much they spent monthly on certain expenses. And as we were doing our live workshops over the past 6 or 7 months, you could literally see the anxiety and the worry come through the questions that our savers would be asking us during that time. So it was important to us during that specific segment to pause each time that we got there and have our savers take note of what they were actually feeling. You know, really take note of what emotions are coming up for you. How are you feeling? And then we encourage them to release anything that was negative, release anxiety and worry, and then gave them some very positive reminders about the incredible steps that they were taking in that moment by going through that process of establishing a spending and savings plan, of getting clear of their finances, and then making new financial goals so that they can be a better steward of their money and achieve the goals that they've set out for ourselves. And our savers walked away telling us how much they appreciated that time and space to focus on their emotional health as they're going through trying to get better financial health. They walked away feeling more confident, and some even told us it was the first time that they felt like they'd created a plan that they can actually stick to. So there is a lot to be said and done when it comes to the mental and emotional health, as we're, encouraging financial stability, to make space for those types of conversations. And it reinforces that trust with employers as well from our employees.
Thanks, Kia. So who would like to jump in here with your viewpoint, your perspective on this question? Matt?
Yeah, thanks. And I promise I will not monopolize the conversation, but
Fine.
in the absence of firsthands, I'm happy to jump in. But so I think there's no doubt that the connections between emotional and mental health are well documented at this point. I think what's really interesting, though, is that employers often have a greater control over the financial side of the ledger than they do the mental and emotional side of the ledger in terms of programs. And so this is where the work of Dr. Carrie Leanne at University of Pittsburgh is really instructive, where she has been documented over the last several years, the fact that when folks are living under financial strain, that it not only impacts and can exacerbate underlying mental health conditions like depression and anxiety, but it actually impairs cognitive performance. So the ability for individuals to think and act and make decisions. This manifests in all sorts of negative ways. And she's got another study where she's highlighted that giving folks access to, a $400 or $500 savings cushion is a great way to actually diminish that cognitive load and improve some of that performance. And so I think as employers are really wrestling with mental health and providing all sorts of services and adding all sorts of solutions, those are all well and good. But if they're not addressing the whole person or really taking the reins on the levers they have the most control over, I fear they're just going to be sort of adding a lot of really cool mental health services, telehealth support, all those things that are going to be expensive and costly, but not actually create the pathways for individuals to get to that mental health improvement. So I'm obviously hopelessly biased because I work for the Financial Health Network. But I would also point individuals to a really interesting survey that Hub International did earlier this year, where they asked within their client base, the HR leaders, what they thought the top benefit priority was. And then they asked workers at those organizations what they thought the top benefit priority was. HR leaders said top benefit priority is mental health. The workforce said top benefit is financial health. And so to the earlier points being made, or some of that dissonance, and no doubt HR leaders are probably under the greatest strain of any department and organization. So there also may just be some appropriate self-selection there. But I think that just speaks to the larger points that have been made throughout, which is really understanding what's happening with your workforce. What are the levers that are within most of the employer's control, and how do you take action on those in a way that really centers the individual and the human, and trying to provide them with the chance to flourish and be well, as opposed to just throwing a bunch of programming at them, which may or may not be effective. And I think you see that certainly in some of the mental health space as well.
That's great. Thanks, Matt. And I was just going to suggest, if you have links to either of those studies that you mentioned and want to pass those on to me, we can share those with the group as well.
I'll send them to you right now.
Perfect. Anybody else have anything to add?
You know, I'm not as well read as Matt. This is Jerry Quinn again, but I will tell you anecdotally from my own experience, once again, that having the employee assistance council kind of atmosphere, I've had it. About half of my civilian employers in my lifetime have had one, and about half have not had one. But having one offers elements of intersection with many of my personal dimensions. So if I'm having mental health conditions, or I have emotional health needs, let's say, you know, I have relationship problems that I need worked on, or I have stressors, you know, maybe I'm on a performance plan at work and I need to talk to somebody, but I can't talk to anybody at work about it, and things like that. I have similarly found that the EACs is what I've referred to them before. I suppose they have come by a variety of names, but having access to those kind of resources seems to me to be kind of a logical fit within, you know, back to the original question, how do you define financial confidence? Well, if any of the dimensions of my life are weak, then the other dimensions of my life have to make up for it or also suffer. And I think that's what Matt was explaining, that is well documented in some of these resources that he cited, is that the more that we can bolster the multiple dimensions of an employee or one of our community members, the more likely we are to see them thrive and succeed. So, you know, food insecurity, I was listening to the food insecurity conference yesterday that was held at the White House. You know, if we begin with the conversation of food insecurity, you know, that there's a person that probably has a low financial confidence level if they're not able to put food on their table. Again, just addressing all of the dimensions of an individual, I think it's a necessity to have the complete conversation, or a holistic conversation, about how we meet the needs of these people. Our contribution is the financial side, but we should have really strong connections with these other organizations that can provide support in these other dimensions, I think is where I would go with that.
Well, thank you, Jerry. And I'm going to have to give you the last word, as we are at 2:20. And we unfortunately didn't get to our last two questions, but we had such great conversation with these four. And we actually did partially address the question about, you know, how honest are employers and what they're going to offer, and how honest are employees and what they will, you know, what they want, what they're looking for from their employees. So we did sort of address that earlier in our conversation. So I will invite you all to attend the summit on November 1st, where we will continue this whole conversation about financial confidence. But in the interest of time, I want to get to our announcement about the America Saves at Work program and some new developments that we have today. So as I mentioned earlier, our mission and vision is all aligned with increasing the the access to workplace savings programs through the workplace. And when we announced the America Saves at Work program in June, we just told you that it would include special events like the Roundtable, research projects, collaborative projects, inclusion in a coalition to help increase the number of employers that are offering financial wellness programs, expand and improve the components of these programs and increase the level of employee participation. Many of you have already joined that coalition, and if you haven't already, there's still plenty of, still opportunity to do that, and we will post the link for that in the chat. But today we're excited to share with you how you can be part of the Workplace Savings Collective, which is one of the components of our program. And the collective is an online guide that will feature organizations that can help employers build a customized workplace savings program. The collective will be available as an ebook with descriptions of services and products from all kinds of organizations, such as financial institutions, retirement plan administrators, payroll providers, EAPs, counseling agencies, and a whole host of others. And employers will be given free access to this collective. The ebook will be issued annually, and the first version is slated for release during America Saves Week 2023, which is February 27th through March 3rd. And the deadlines for entries to be included in the 2023 version is November 15th of 2022. So the benefits of being included in the collective, it will encompass a strong marketing campaign for the ebook, including search engine optimization. There will be mentions in our upcoming Savings Advocate podcast, which will be directed towards our partners and organizations, not the individual saver. It will be featured in our monthly America Saves partner update that reaches 11,000 organizations who rely on our information to promote positive savings behavior to their people. It'll be included in the annual America Saves Week toolkit, and it will be highlighted at the annual America Saves Summit. So following today's event, we will send you an email with instructions on how to obtain a listing and what information you'll need to provide. There will be 3 tiers of listings available in the collective. And again, employers will have free access to the collective. If you're really eager, Amanda will share the link for the collective sign up in the chat as well. And as I said, we will be sharing that with you via email following today's event. And also we'll have the link for the coalition sign up. And then we always welcome you to submit topics for future roundtable events. So let me pause there for a moment and see if there are any questions about the collective or any other part of the America Saves at Work program. Okay, well, watch your inboxes for the email with more information. And then finally, speaking of future events, we have mentioned the America Saves Summit. And so Kia, why don't you just take the another minute or two before we wrap up and share some more details about the summit.
Yeah, really excited about the America Saves Summit. It is on Tuesday, November 1st. We have a hybrid approach. So we have limited space, but there is in-person attendance, and it's at the Public Welfare Foundation in DC. On the registration form, there is also a link to book hotel rooms if you are out of the DC area or just want to be there early and get downtown early and stay the night at the Courtyard Marriott, which is a couple of blocks or a couple of metro stops from the Public Welfare Foundation. But if you can't make it to DC, we are also offering a virtual option. So the link to sign up is there. Several of the people who were here today on the roundtable will also be our speakers. So if you click that link, you can see who our speakers are. I do know there's an email out going out today that will also list all of our speakers for our summit. And we're again continuing the conversation around financial confidence and how emotions affect change. So we are excited to have our first in-person summit since 2019. And we hope that you all can be there either with us in person or virtually.
Great. Thanks, Kia. Well, that wraps up today's session. Unless there are any other final comments or questions, we really thank all of you for joining us, and we look forward to continuing to work together. We hope to see you at the summit. And as always, please don't hesitate to reach out personally to myself, to Kia, to Amanda with any questions or comments. We really value our relationships with each of you. And with that, we wish you all a great rest of the week. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you. Bye.